Okay, folks, welcome to the September CapMac User Group meeting. Little overview of everything. First of all, let me ask, do we have any visitors in attendance tonight? Please speak up if you are here, because I can't see anything but my screen on my iPad, so no waving of hands. Okay. Membership is a little down from last month, and I'm going to get to that in just a few minutes. We have a number of ways for you to follow CapMac. Many of them are the same that you have seen before. The one addition is that we have created a calendar on our iCloud account so that everyone can subscribe to it and see all upcoming events of CapMac within their own calendar. The URL for that is listed here, and it was in the email that went out a couple of days ago. So what are we going to do tonight? We're doing the welcome right now, and we're going to handle some CapMac business and announcements. We are going to defer the tech tip by Jill and Koki to a future meeting so that they can get their presentation in the way that they want it to be. We will be having a product review on printers by Bill O'Barr. Getting to know will be Jim Wynn tonight. And of course, our feature talk going over what was announced at today's Apple meeting will be done by Jeff Gamet. So before we can get to those things, let's just go through some of our regular business. Look at the CapMac board. We are the same old group of folks as you saw last month. So that'll be going on until December. CapMac board meetings are the Monday before the first Tuesday. Makes it a mouthful to say, but that's the only way to say it, because you can't just say first Monday, because that doesn't always work. Appointed positions are the same as before. These are good through the remainder of this year, and then starting in January, we'll be wanting to fill these positions again. So there'll be an email that goes out asking for those who want to continue or to fill unfilled positions for 2022. As I mentioned before, we do have a calendar created on our iCloud account, so you can subscribe to it and you will see all the upcoming events. Let me just ask, and again, I can't see hands, so how many of you have taken the opportunity to subscribe to the CapMac calendar? Anyone?
Yeah, I have.
Good. Well, I hope this is a way that we can all be aware of what's going on with CapMac, and there won't be any last minute surprises to you of meetings that we're going to have. Now, one thing, and I failed to add it in my list here, is with regards to the picnic. As I mentioned in the email that went out, we, and by we, I mean the board, at our last meeting decided to postpone the picnic from 2021 to 2022. So you will see, if you have subscribed to the calendar, that the previously scheduled date on Saturday, October 9th, I think it was, is gone. And now there's a new picnic scheduled in May of 2022. I believe it's the 21st. So this is one reason why having subscription to the calendar will help, is you'll always know as soon as we change or add something. Last month's general meeting, if you missed it, and again, keeping up with the calendar is a good way to make sure that you don't miss them. But as with all the meetings since we've started using Zoom, the recordings of those are available on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and review something that was presented in a meeting, you can do that, or share the URL with a friend, or if you happen to miss the meeting, as sometimes happens, you can go and see what you missed. So please take advantage of that and subscribe to the YouTube channel. help desk. We've started our help desk monthly at 6:30. I wasn't here early enough to join that. How did that go this evening?
Okay.
I think it went well. We had a couple of questions.
All right, great. Well, and we were going to continue with that because it seems to be well received. The other thing is, if something comes up, if you'll email me or send something on the Slack channel about your question, I'll get it to the help desk team so that they can try to help you with an answer. I brought up at the last meeting doing a coffee with CapMac, i.e. a meeting during the day with no particular program, but just an opportunity to get together and chat. We held our first one on August 19th, and it seemed to be pretty successful. We had 14 in attendance and everyone wanted to do it again. So I'll be scheduling another of those for sometime the week of September the 26th. I put October the 26th in the email, but it will be September the 26th. So I will send out another email just prior to that to let everyone know and put it in the calendar so you will be aware of it. We have had some invitations from another mug, the Naples, Florida Mac user group, to join them in their meetings this month. They've already had 2 meetings, but they have several remaining. If you are interested, the contact information is shown on your screen now and will be in the slide deck as soon as I can get it to Robert, which will be tomorrow, the next day. So you can, if you wish, sign up for their presentations. Whoops, that one I should have deleted. Sorry. Jim Wynn sent this, and it's a highly appropriate cartoon for having Zoom meetings. If you read it at the bottom, you see this group together, and they're saying, "Someone wants to join us. Are you there? Do you?" In a Zoom parlance, you could say, "Is your microphone unmuted? Is your camera turned on?" But it seems highly appropriate, and I thank Jim for sending that in so that we can share it with everyone.
Facebook is good for something.
Huh?
Facebook is good for something.
For a few things, not a lot of things,
Source
but a
of
few
cartoons.
things. You got to go through a lot of chaff to find the wheat, though. So here's some slides of interest that I thought you all might be interested in. This one shows PC unit sales, and you can see where Apple is sort of in the middle, not about where I would have expected it to be. Certainly doing better than Microsoft in there trying to sell their Surface products. Going along with that same vein, looking at market share of OS, mobile OS, you can see that iOS has about a quarter of the market, while Android, as everyone would expect, has the majority share. In terms of iOS 14.6 worldwide market, you can see that it has been is rapidly being adopted. That seems to be the case every time Apple does an upgrade. The upgrade rolls out very rapidly across the world. Unfortunately, for the sake of security, the same cannot be said for Android devices. Revenue has been pretty good for iPhone. As you can see here, it has been up higher this first quarter of 2021. So that's surprising with the pending announcement of new phones. So you would think that second quarter or third quarter, depending on when availability of the phones will be, this would be third or fourth quarter now, will be even higher. I can't talk tonight. Smart speakers are another of Apple's market. And you can see that they have a pretty sizable chunk. 7.8%, but there are a lot of players in the smart speaker market these days. Streaming, music streaming, Apple is also very active there with a healthy 16% share of the overall market. Again, there are a lot of competitors in that market. An odd little look at things is by web browser, and Safari is a strong second, not nearly as strong as Chrome is, but still not bad. Nancy, are you here yet?
Yes, I'm here.
Would you like to announce who won the membership contest?
Yeah, as soon as I remember, give me a sec. It's been a long week. Well, it's Susan. I'm just blanking on her last name. Shame on me, but just a second. Come back to me in a sec, okay?
Krumholtz.
Yes, thank you. Who is that savior, Tom? Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yes, she won, and she will be getting a gift card.
All right, thank you for that.
What'd you say, Jim?
Congratulations.
Oh, yes.
And thank you for handling that, Nancy.
Renewing in our membership contest, and as usual, I used my handy dandy iPhone app and to choose the winner as fairly as possible. So she's the lucky one this time.
All right. Again, thank you for handling that, Nancy. This brings up a good subject. And remember at the beginning of the meeting, I mentioned that our membership was down slightly. That's because with dues expiring or membership expiring the end of August, we have a few people that haven't renewed yet. So please, if you haven't renewed, send Tom your check or go to the website and renew your dues for 2022, or the coming year, I should say, to get us back up to our full strength membership of 54 as of a couple weeks ago.
John, they can use Apple Pay and pay Tom too, which is the easiest way of all.
Whatever works for the people, but that's an excellent suggestion. I always prefer to use Apple Pay when I can. I think, does Tom, correct me if I'm not wrong, but doesn't the website also accept Apple Pay?
No, the people like Nancy and some others have done Apple Pay straight to my personal email, and then I take the money and move it over to the CapMac account.
Okay. Well, however you all end up paying, whether it's sending in a check, going to the website, or contacting Tom directly, please renew your membership. That's where a lot of our funding comes to be able to continue our various programs. Next up is going to be Bill O'Barr.
Yeah, I did a little, my 30-second workstation tour. Let me play that real quick. That's my new M1 Mac Mini. And there's my all-in-one printer that I bought, Canon, and a Brother laser printer. And that's my desk set up. And my significant other doesn't need such a big desk. She almost never uses it. So let me go back. Let me go back to that shot there. I had a couple of older printers. I had an older Canon all-in-one, which it prints great. What I really like is I scan a lot of documents. I archive a lot of things by scanning, and so that was real important to me. And I really liked the Canon. I liked the ink cartridges, and turns out that there are several companies on Amazon that you can buy inkjet cartridges for like half the price of what Canon would want. And I use a company called Easy Ink, and I've just had great success with that. So I had an older Canon all-in-one. I had an older Samsung laser printer, which was really cheap. And when I updated my house to a Google Nest mesh system, I started having wireless issues. And what was worse than me having wireless issues was when my significant other started having wireless issues, and the quality of my life dipped substantially at that point. So I had to do something. And so let me pull this document out. So I like the two brands. And so I looked around for where I could get them. And the best price for the all-in-one was Amazon for $180. And the brother I actually bought locally at Best Buy. And when I set them up, I made the mistake of attaching them to my Mac and making them my Mac printers instead of pure wireless. And so we had, as long as we were close to them, we could print just fine. But once we got away from the Mac, it wasn't so good. And so I went back and reset them up as pure wireless. And because they worked great through my mesh system, we can print from the front yard to the backyard and everywhere in between. We've got AT&T fiber here, so we've got a great signal everywhere. And so I wasn't looking for great specifics with these printers. It turned out if you look at the pros, I just wanted the latest Wi-Fi hardware and software. I wanted a compact size. I didn't want giant printers. And turns out that both of these printers print on the front and the back of the page, which, as it turns out, I like that a lot. You use half as much paper most of the time. And they were moderate to low price, as you can see the prices. And the only cons I could come up with was that the settings could have been a little easier, and both of them are a little bit noisy, but that didn't really affect me at all. So here is the stats for the Brother printer. It's pretty straightforward. It works great. And here's the Canon TR-8620. Once I got them set up, I just took my two old printers to Goodwill, and I've been using these, and they've just been flawless. I can't complain a bit. So not much else to say. They really took care of what I needed. I'm very happy with them. So if any of you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer one or two.
I'd like to make a comment right quick. I have that same Brother laser printer. I've had it for several years, and it is absolutely wonderful. I have never had a problem with it. It holds a lot of paper. I can print from the phone or my iPad or my computer. And there's two different kinds of cartridges you can buy for it. You can buy a high capacity cartridge. And when I bought it, they had a special deal where you could get an extra cartridge for a really low price. And I can't remember the model number, but I can tell by looking at yours that it's exactly the same as mine. If you don't need color and you want a nice trouble-free, clean, black and white printer, I couldn't recommend that Brother laser printer any higher.
Well, I have a comment about a Brother color printer that's inkjet. The one that I have, and it was new back in like January, is miserable. Okay, I came home one day and my cartridges were basically empty, so I went to the store to get replacement cartridges. Brought them home and installed them, and I thought, wait a minute, you know, I went through the installation process, all this, that, and the other nice stuff. They printed horrible. And I bought I will also tell you that I bought the print cartridges at Staples. Okay, the replacements, that is. I pulled them out and looked, and they were only half full. And then I tried to return them, but Staples said they couldn't return them since they were already opened. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and I'm going to buy a Canon.
Well, what I really like about the Canon, I know many of you that have had inkjet printers before, is if you go a substantial amount of time without printing, and then you come back and you try to print something, then your print heads are all gooped up and you've got a problem. And these Canon printers go through a process where they flush the print heads, and I don't recall ever having an issue with that happening. That's another thing I like about the Canon. But the real thing is they have a pretty good scanning software, and so it's got a document feeder, and so I can scan all the stuff that I need and then tuck them away in a file somewhere, a folder somewhere, and I find it really handy. Anything else?
I would make a comment about this. This is basically the same setup we have. We have a Canon printer with an integrated scanner and also a Brother. The Brother's pretty old. I think it's probably 6 or 7 years old now. Works perfectly fine. The beauty of the Brother is I have it hooked to an Airport Express. And so we have 2 laptops and 2 desktops and a couple other computers, and all of them can share that one printer over the network with no trouble whatsoever. I mean, it's just, you know, it's just right there in the list. All you have to do is make sure you have the Canon driver installed on the computer, and they'll work perfectly. The other thing I'd have to say about the Canons is when we go to buy one, we very intentionally look for the one that only uses 2 cartridges. It has a color cartridge, which has the 3 primary colors, and the other cartridge is a black cartridge. And it's a large number of them actually have something like a 4 or 5 cartridge system. They have 3 primaries. Well, I guess it's 4 or 5 anyway, 3 primary colors, 1 cartridge each, and then a black cartridge. And I think there may be another one in there. But anyway, if one of the cartridges goes empty, then you're stuck. And they you know, it gets real cranky if it doesn't want to print unless all the cartridges are, you know, have ink. And so it becomes really tedious. The other thing too is the Brother's great. If you're looking for low cost, low cost printing, the Brothers are terrific. The cartridges I got them off Amazon, and they're about, I think between about, I don't know, $14 and $20 each, and they're good for 2,500 pages. And it's a terrific printer.
Your 2 cartridge printer, will it print in black and white if the color cartridge is empty?
I don't know. Ginger, do you know? I can't remember. It's in my wife's office.
Would you ask the question again?
Will your printer print in black? You know,
Yes.
If the color cartridge is empty?
What happened? Yes, if the black one's empty, the color still prints and it looks a little strange. If the color runs out, the black one, because there's 2 cartridges, one's color and one's black. They don't generally run out at the same time. But when the color starts looking odd, then you go and check your utility and it tells you which one's low and you replace that one. You don't not have to replace them both at the same time.
So if the
And
color-
what, go
if-
ahead.
If the color is empty, you can still print in black.
Yes, yes.
But-
And one thing that Peter figured out recently is that the XL cartridges are not really twice as big as the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
and they
looking at
cost twice as much. So
yeah, I was looking at the technical specs on the cartridges for some reason, and the regular cartridge is 9 milliliters, and the extra large cartridge is 15 milliliters. And I would fully expect it to be, well, 9 times 2 is 18. So I thought, oh, it'll be 18 or 19 or 20. It will really be XL, and it's not really. So that means, and if you look at the way the cost works out, it would almost be cheaper to get 2 regular size cartridges than 1 extra large size. So. Yeah, but anyway, we do the bulk of our printing on the Brother, which knocks the cost down to basically the cost of the paper, and then maybe a penny for the toner. So, it's pretty low. And just one other thing to add, related to the scanner, there's 2 other things that I tend to tell people about. One is Apple provides a utility that works with practically every scanner called image capture, and that works really well if you don't have, if the software provided by the company doesn't work very well. And the other thing too is if you really want to have the cat's meow and scanning software, look for a product made by called ViewScan. And I'm trying to think, Ginger, what's the name of that guy or the name of the company? There's a guy, and he has one product. He's a software developer.
it's VUE.
Yeah, VUE.
SCAN, and it's Hamrick.
Hamrick, yeah, I think it's hamrick.com.
It's excellent. It's absolutely excellent.
Yeah.
It is. It gives you ultimate control of your scanner. It's just astonishing. It's an incredible product. Now, if you go to buy it, I think you can get a 1-year license for it for $40 or $50. And I think for $80, in other words, for twice the money, you can get a lifetime license.
And it's lifetime. It's easy when you change scanners, change computers, change whatever, it still works.
Oh, and the guy his support is fantastic. I had some minor problem years ago and I exchanged email with him and we resolved the problem within 24 hours.
Its company is Hamrick, HAMRICK.com.
That isn't by any chance Bill Hamrick.
Oh, that sounds right.
I don't know his first name.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. Yeah.
Well, the reason I asked that is there was a fellow by that name who was the chief engineer at Channel 36.
Huh.
Jim Wynn remembers.
Art, that's
I don't think it's the same person. I don't think he's in Austin.
Yeah, Art, I was thinking that too when I heard the name Hamrick, Bill Hamrick.
Well, at least you know how to spell it.
Yeah, but if you scan a lot of stuff, for example, you can scan and you can do scan multiple page documents. You can, it'll do optical character recognition and reduce the scanned image to text. You can output as PDF, JPEG, TIFF. That you can change the names of them. You can automate the naming of the files. It just goes on, and it's an incredible. And it's just all it does is just handle scanning, and it works for practically every scanner ever made. So,
what cartridges do you guys use on your Canon? Do you get Canon cartridges?
Oh, well, we do if we can find a deal on them. Costco used to refill them, but I think they stopped doing that. You can get them refilled different places.
Well,
Amazon has a brand called Easy Ink, and I've used it for my previous Canon, and I'm using it for this one.
I think we've used Easy Ink. Yeah.
And I haven't had a bad cartridge yet, and they're a fraction of the price. So, just what I would recommend. But
I have a Canon MG 5420, and it uses archival Canon inks, which I like to use for printing out some of my art gift cards and things, because I know, and some prints, I know it'll last better, but it's more expensive. So if you want to print something that's going to last, you're going to have to pay for more expensive ink. But also if a cartridge runs out, I mean, it does have different red, blue. It's got about 4 different ones, a big black one and a small black one. But if one of them runs out, it will still print. It will tell you you're running out of ink, but then you just say, okay, and then you can keep printing. It doesn't stop you from printing. So
Well,
anyway,
when you start running out, my understanding is a lot of those cartridges, the print head is actually in the cartridge. And if you run it dry, it's
Yeah.
not lubricating and cooling the print head. And if you're going to refill it, you know, you don't want to run it completely.
no, I think it still
Dry.
has some ink in there, and I will change it, but I don't have to do it right away. Like it'll still print.
I did forget to mention a while back when I was talking about the color, I'm using a brother color. Okay, it's a 4 ink type system. And at first it worked pretty well, but now I'm gonna give it to St. Vincent de Paul, I believe. Let him take care of it.
I volunteer at the settlement home in the computer and electronics group, and we get color printers. I wouldn't say frequently. We get them because they seem to fizzle for a while in the supply. So yeah.
I think Inkjet Ink is a profit center for the printer manufacturers.
What was
I
that?
had an
It's a
experience
profit
with-
center is what he
Oh,
said.
yeah.
They'll
Absolutely.
almost give you the printer, but you end up paying more for the ink. That's why
Yes.
we get one that only takes 2 cartridges instead of 4, multiple, where you
Mhm.
have to replace all this stuff.
Yeah.
But then we're not doing archival art or anything. But Peter made a point, you can donate stuff to the settlement home, and they have a garage sale to raise money for the orphanage. So if
Will they repair them if they're not working properly?
No, not really. What we do is we check them out, and if they're capable, in other words, if it's just a cartridge issue or something like that, then we replace the cartridge. If we have some, we'll replace the cartridge and then make it saleable. But if they're mechanically bound up or if they have issues that are not easily fixed, then we hand them over to Goodwill for scrap.
Yeah. Okay.
I had an experience with a Canon printer that I really liked, and this was several years ago. I liked it a lot, and I kept replacing the cartridges, and everything was going fine. And all of a sudden, one day I turned it on, and it wouldn't print. I got an error message, and so I thought, well, maybe I'll check the cartridges. Looked like the cartridges were okay. And then I did a Google search, and I found out that sometimes you have to clean a Canon printer, and it told you exactly how to open up the machine and how to clean it and put everything back in place. And I did all that, and it still wouldn't print. It gave me an error message. So I kept Googling it, and come to find out, there were several references on there about how Canon printers, and they may all do this for all I know, because I bet I had it for 6 or 7 years. And it said that Canon printers will just quit working after a certain date. And I guess it's planned obsolescence. But once you reach that deadline, it doesn't matter what you do to it. You can clean it up to where it looks brand new, and you can put in brand new cartridges, and it's not going to print.
Well, ours keep running, and of course, I'm driving a 95 Toyota Tercel, so we don't give up on stuff easy.
Actually, one thing I do recall is that I had one that came up with there's like when they clean themselves when they start up, usually you'll hear them like rackety rack like that when they start, and they're actually cleaning the print head, and there's a pad in there that catches the ink that's sprayed out when they do the cleaning process, and that pad will get full, and they must have a sensor or something in there, because it'll come up and say the waste ink tank is full. Well, it's not really a tank, it's kind of a pad, and either you can fool it by resetting it, or you can maybe replace it, but I don't think people really commonly do that, and it really takes a lot of time for that thing to fill up. So that's my experience.
So say it's profit for the printer manufacturers.
Well, Bill, your product review has stimulated quite a bit of discussion this evening. So
I had no idea.
It's been very welcome.
What is you mentioned the mesh router. What mesh router do you use?
Google Nest.
Oh. Do you recommend it?
Yeah, it's a tad expensive, but it's been rock solid, and it monitors itself, it updates itself, haven't had any issues at all.
I'm
If-
using an Aero, EERO,
Hmm.
and it is just wonderful. Their tech support is, or was anyway, very good. It's been very reliable. And who else somebody else uses the Aero. It's supplied to people who have a Spectrum service.
I have one. I've got it.
Mhm. Well, those arrows
seems
are
that-
pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's working pretty good.
They
They will
supply
upgrade.
one to me. Okay.
Was that?
Was that Time Warner that you said supplies it?
Yeah, Spectrum.
That's same thing, I
Time
think.
Warner.
Yeah, right.
Then I better get on the ball and call them or something.
That's what they call themselves these days.
Okay, well, thanks for all of the discussion and exchange of useful information about printers. Printers, as several people mentioned, seem to be a painful thing to use. They work great in the beginning, but unfortunately, if you don't print very often, and I don't, ink cartridge printers, or sure, I should say, inkjet printers always seem to get fouled up way before the cartridges are empty. I also have a Brother laser printer, and it has been solid and does everything I need because I don't need color. Okay, so I think we have gone through everything on our agenda except for our primary speaker. Nancy, do you want to introduce Jeff?
Nancy, you have to unmute yourself.
I keep
Thank you, Tom.
surprising her.
It's been
And you can go,
stable. It is absolutely my pleasure to introduce Jeff. I've known Jeff for a long time. He had many years of working at the Mac Observer, and he's had some experience working with some other specialized companies. One thing you don't know about him, I bet, is that at one point in time, he was a policeman. I'm still enjoying tremendously the result of the workshop that Jeff did for us on using HomeKit. I just think that I could listen to him talk all day, and so I'm going to shut up so y'all can listen to him talk. Welcome, Jeff.
Nancy, that was the best introduction. And Nancy and I, we've known each other since we were kids.
Oh, no, you're not old enough, honey.
All right. So since we're living in pandemic time has become kind of arbitrary for me. So I lost track of how much time we have left tonight. So when do I need to make sure that I'm wrapped up for everyone?
Probably about 10 minutes. I don't know what time it is right now, but probably about 10 minutes to 9 or so, if not before. So you have plenty.
good hour.
Okay, cool. So we have plenty of time. All right. So I'm going to be talking about today's announcements from Apple. And actually, do I need to add anything to Nancy's introduction so you have a better idea of who I am? I mean, I think she did pretty good, but if you need more details, I'm happy to share.
Go ahead, Jeff, because there's things there. You have life secrets that I don't know.
Well, I can't share all my life secrets because sometimes when you share secrets, then you have to kill the people, and we just don't want to go there. All right. So yes, as Nancy said, I worked with the Mac Observer for, I believe it was, it had to be at least 13 years. And I worked with Smile Software for a while, and I've been podcasting long enough that for some of you this will make sense, and for others it'll be like, that sounds impressive. I've been podcasting so long, I remember having to hand code my own RSS feeds. So I've been doing the podcast circuit for a while. And if you want to find some of the shows that I'm currently doing on Tuesdays, and so tonight I'm actually not doing one of my shows because I love all of you so much that I just wanted to hang out with you. So I'm not on Mac Voices live tonight, but I am on most Tuesdays. And then Thursdays around lunchtime, I do the Big Show, which is a live tech show out of the UK. And then on Friday mornings, I do the Mac Show, which is a live Mac show, again, out of the UK. And I kind of get around, so I'm easy to find. All right, so let's dive in and start talking about today's announcements. And I said that, and now that's not what I'm going to talk about at all. What I'm going to talk about first is iOS 14.8, which is completely not on our agenda tonight, but that's too bad because you've handed over the reins to me and I have the control. All right, so iOS 14.8, you want to install this even if you're going to be installing iOS 15 on your iPhone and iPad as soon as it's available. Do this. If you haven't already, do it after the meeting tonight. Install iOS 14.8. It is a super, super critical security patch. It patches the Pegasus security flaw. And the short version is, this is something that's being exploited in the wild by law enforcement and by various government entities around the world. And it allows the attacker to gain access to the contents on your phone and to monitor what you're doing through your phone, and potentially even turn on the microphone and camera to monitor what you're saying and doing. And you would have no idea this is happening. Now, the odds of any of us being targeted with this is pretty low, but that's not the point. The point is, this is a major security flaw that's out there. It's been commercialized and weaponized, and that means that if businesses and governments have access to this security flaw, there are other people that do too, and they're just randomly trying to find anyone that they can hit with this. So install this security patch before you go to bed tonight if you haven't installed it already.
Jeff,
Okay. Yes.
Quick question. I've been trying to install this for 2 days, but there's no update available on my phone. So where can I get it?
Okay. So I'm assuming you're doing the normal thing where you go to settings, and then you go to general, and then you go to software update. And you're not getting the iOS 14.8 update to show up for you?
No.
Have you tried restarting your phone?
Yep. Okay, well, if it's not an easy answer, don't worry about it. I thought maybe it was an easy answer.
I would check to see if it's already installed. What does it say for the software version under About?
I have installed automatically.
Oh, I have updates installed automatically too.
Oh, so you were totally on top of it, Nancy.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, that was actually good, because there's probably a lot of other people that have auto updates installed and didn't even realize that that their phones have been updated.
I'm one of them.
So, all right. Okay, now let's really talk about today's announcements. And Apple announced new iPad models, new Apple Watch, and new iPhone, and some Fitness Plus updates. And before we dive into what they've really announced, we should talk quickly about what they didn't announce, which is all the stuff that people were saying in the rumor mill. And one of the problems that we have is that there are all these rumors that are coming out about new products. For example, we probably all heard about how the new Apple Watch is going to have these flat sides and probably have these new sensors And it turns out the Apple Watch that we got doesn't match the rumors at all. Well, what we're seeing is this thing where these rumors come out, and the media is responsible for this, but we're also responsible because we're soaking it all in. And people are assuming that these rumors are actually facts. And so they're setting their expectations for what Apple or any other company is going to announce based on rumors, and they're prepping for their purchase decisions based on rumors. Never do that, because we don't know what's really going to be announced. For example, there were all these rumors about new Macs today, and there was no discussion about Macs at all. And instead, what we got were the announcements that Apple intended to give us, not what the rumor mill said that we were supposed to have. So when we see the next wave of rumors, and they're already happening, because we're seeing rumors about what Apple's going to announce in October, which is new Macs. Keep in mind, until Apple says they're doing a media event, and until the media event happens and they say this is what we're releasing, it's all speculation. So we need to set our expectations for what's happening based on reality, not interpreting rumors as fact. And I have seen the fallout from that today, because Apple didn't announce the rumors, and people were really disappointed with this event today because they didn't get what the rumor mill said they were going to get. And so now they're feeling like Apple let them down. Apple failed to innovate. Apple is running late. They can't get their products out on time. Well, no, they just don't cater to a rumor mill. Simple as that. Okay, so now let's start talking about products. And unless people have some objection about the order we go through, let's go through the order where that Apple actually announced things in. So we'll start with iPads. And Apple announced a new iPad model. And this new iPad gives us an A13 Bionic processor. That's good. That's not the newest A series processor that we could, have in an iPad, or that we're seeing in iPhones, but that's a respectable processor. So for an entry level priced iPad, that's a nice processor to have in there. Much to my surprise, this iPad still relies on the original Apple Pencil. So if you're going to use Apple Stylus with your iPad, that means that you have one that plugs into your Lightning port and has that little plug on the end like that. So it's just going to stick off the side of your iPad, which to me was a horrible design decision in the beginning. And I'm actually disappointed that Apple didn't take their entry-level iPad to use the Apple Pencil 2, which I always have show and tell stuff handy. This is the one that looks like this, where it has the flat part and it sticks magnetically to the side of your iPad to charge. So as long as you can live with the fact that you're still using the first generation Apple Pencil, and honestly, there's nothing wrong with that Apple Pencil. I mean, I have one right here within reach, and I use it on a regular basis. It's a good stylus, but I'd much rather have the Apple Pencil 2 because it fits with the iPad much better, I feel. And I also, when you're sitting in a coffee shop and your Apple Pencil dies and you stick it on the side and it's just hanging out, just know, Apple, please, why did you do that to us? It's horrible. But anyhow, all right, I'm off my Apple Pencil soapbox. So this this is a nice entry iPad, $329 for a very capable, very powerful iPad. So I think that's great. All right. And I believe pre-orders started today for this model, and it'll be in stores next week. And all of this stuff is still new enough that I'm absorbing information still. So if I don't have the answer, we'll see if we can find it when you come up with questions. All right,
Quick
so
question.
next, yes.
Yeah, quick question. Your pencil uses a lightning connector. Does the iPad still have a lightning connector?
Yes, the $329, that just the standard iPad. Yes, that has a lightning connector still. Yes. Okay, so let's move on to the iPad mini. So this is iPad mini 6. And for me, this was the holy crap product of today's announcements, because it is a major revamp for the iPad mini, and one that I was very excited to see. Apple's smallest iPad, I felt, has been lagging behind for quite a while now and has been priced much higher than it should be for what it is or was. Well, they fixed that today, and they just immediately surprised me. Not with the redesign, so it looks like an iPad Pro, so it has the flat sides now, and it uses Apple Pencil too. So if you have an iPad Pro that uses an Apple Pencil too, you can now use the same stylus with your iPad mini, because of course you're going to have both. And just stick it to the side of whichever iPad you want to use. It'll connect, and now you just use it. And much more elegant system than plugging in to the lightning port, and made me very happy. But the thing that really surprised me, and I'm glad I was sitting down at the time, is when they said it has an A15 Bionic processor. This is a crazy powerful processor to put in this iPad. And realistically, the only way you could take this and make it even more powerful at this point is if you said, and it has an M1 processor, just like the iPad Pro. So except for that A15 instead of M1, I really feel like what Apple gave us today with the new iPad mini is iPad Pro mini. This is just a really, really impressive little iPad. Much better screen than we had before. Excuse me, much better color range. And it has that same motion tracking FaceTime camera that Apple introduced on the iPad earlier. And it has stereo speakers for when you're holding it in landscape mode, which is really nice. And excuse me, it doesn't have Face ID, but it does have Touch ID in the button, the power button. So that was a nice feature. The reason they moved the Touch ID to the power button was because they kept the body basically the same size, but increased the screen size. So there's no room on the front for a button anymore. So the solution is to do what they did on the iPad and put Touch ID in the power button. Another change that they made was they moved the volume switches up onto that top. So if you're holding it in portrait mode, the power buttons are up on the top. They did that to accommodate the fact that that you attach the Apple Pencil to the side. So another interesting change, but totally makes sense. And
what if you are using someone else's iPad? Does the Touch ID prevent you from sharing it, turning it on?
Oh no, you can still turn it on. It's just Touch ID is now integrated into that power button. So it would work exactly the same as it does today if you're sharing someone else's iPad, where either you need to know the passcode to unlock it,
Okay.
or they need to have let you put your fingerprint into Touch ID as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, sure.
I
Okay.
have a lot of trouble with that Touch ID working on my iPad 11.
You know, you are not alone. And okay, so here's the part where I have to be very careful and very sensitive about the way I say this. As we get older, our fingerprints get shallower. And Apple did not come up with a sensor system for Touch ID that can really accommodate that. And I don't know if that's really Apple's fault or if it's just a limitation of the technology. But I know people. My dad, for example, his fingerprints were already shallow, and now they're basically gone. So he would be like the perfect criminal, because the police wouldn't be able to lift prints off of doors or locks or anything. It'd just be these smudges because he really has no fingerprints, which means that he can't use Touch ID on his iPhone 8, which also means that he can't use Apple Pay because he can't set up Touch ID. So my guess is that that any problems that you're having today with Touch ID will not go away with any of the current or future products that Apple releases that have Touch ID on them.
Sir, can I ask you quickly? So how is that our prints get shallower? It's just like how does that work?
Magic? No, no,
your skin doesn't have as much fat in it, Tamara. My fingerprints are hard to read too. I'm older than you, but sometimes if you use your little finger instead of your index finger, or your thumb, some other finger, it works better. But maybe Face ID is better. But I've noticed that when I'm depositing a check, it's much more sensitive then than if I'm just trying to open the phone. So there's some different algorithm that the bank uses, I guess.
I never thought of that. Thank you.
My guess is that the bank is using something that's actually less secure.
Of course. But I'm in the phone already to do it, so they figure they don't have to check as much.
Yeah, could be. All right. So yeah, Tamara, sorry, I wasn't trying to be glib when I said magic, because I honestly don't know what the physical mechanics are behind our fingerprints getting shallower with age, but they do.
It's just fascinating. Thank you.
I was just happy to hear a reason, because I've had a lot of trouble with my fingerprints lately. I had no idea I could blame it on age. Now it's time to turn to a life of crime.
Well,
that's
I hate to tell you this, but you can't. I'm 75, and it doesn't. I mean, when I put my thumb down on the sensor, if it doesn't immediately recognize it, I just rotate my thumb.
So maybe some of us have a more tendency. Maybe our fingerprints were shallow to begin with, or something. I'm going to, of course, Google on this and be off on another la la land looking for why my fingerprints are faint. But thank you for that perhaps explanation.
I have found out that if you put a little moisture on your finger, or even oil, like from your nose, that'll help.
Nose oil fixes a lot of things. I tried it just for fun the other day. I was fooling around, and I thought, well, I'll turn the phone upside down and try my finger, try opening it upside down, and it worked fine. So the orientation of your fingers apparently does make any difference.
Well, as long as
they do look for blood flow, so it's not just your fingerprint. There has to be something happening, not a plaster cast of your finger, which I thought was kind of cool.
Quick subject change, Georgia. Is that by any chance the mountains in New Mexico behind you?
Oh, that's Tucson.
Oh, okay, never mind.
All right. So I have more to say on iPad mini, so we'll do that. But I'll transition us out of our Touch ID discussion back into the iPad mini by saying, when you set up your fingerprint in Touch ID, move your finger around to a lot of different angles, roll it on its side, make sure you get the tip so you're covering as much of your finger as you can. All right, so now the other big amazing surprise for me with iPad mini 6 is that it doesn't have a lightning port. It has USB-C, just like the iPad Pro. And I thought that was a really big move on Apple's part, because they're, well, I mean, at this point, I wish everything Apple did was USB-C and the lightning port was gone, so that I could have a unified set of dongles for my Mac, my iPads, and my iPhone, and I would be so happy. But as it stands, now I have to carry 2 sets of dongles with me. But this also means that you get faster data throughput. You can plug USB-C hard drives directly into your iPad mini. You can plug in other peripherals like audio inputs and stuff directly into a mini. And if you have a high-end DSLR that uses USB-C, you can get the faster data throughput by going from a USB-C data cable as opposed to trying to offload images from a camera card reader.
Jeff, just
Yes.
on that, we just watched the Apple announcement before the meeting because we wanted to kind of know what all the stuff was. They showed an example of using what was that, an ultrasound reader thing, you know, on somebody's belly going straight into an iPad mini. Is that because they've got that port? They can do that with medical devices, or is that what the USB 3 does?
Well, wow. Okay. So device makers, they're choosing what they want to support for data throughput, and USB-C gives them a lot more bandwidth than the Lightning connector does. So they can develop these products or these devices, and now they can be used on multiple devices, which is good for their bottom line. But it also makes it so that you, as say someone in the medical field that's using one of these scanners, you're not having to deal with this bottleneck of a data port that just simply can't take the information that you're trying to put through it.
I think related to that too is the computational capability of the new iPads, where they have graphics units that are decent, and they've got, you know, and the cores themselves have computational abilities that the earlier models just didn't have. So yeah, it's a combination of processing power and throughput.
Right. Yeah, we're talking about tablets that can basically fit in your pocket, that outperform supercomputers from just a few years ago, which to me is just like crazy cool that we can do stuff like this. So, all right. So new iPads, nice updates, and I'm especially excited about the new iPad mini. All right. So now let's talk about Apple Watch, and we'll end up talking about Fitness Plus as part of this because they kind of go together, because Apple Watch has become the standard really for wrist-worn health and fitness tracking. And that does not change with Apple Watch 7. And this is one of the places where the rumor mill completely fell down, because what we were expecting based on rumors is literally not what happened. The only thing that got right is that the watch bands you already have, you can still use with the new watches. Which doesn't surprise me. I would have been shocked if Apple had done something that ruined watch band compatibility. I don't see that happening for a very long time. Okay, so we have a new Apple Watch that looks pretty much like the old Apple Watch. But if you look at them closely from the side, what you'll see is that the new Apple Watch, the glass surface, blends in better with the curve of the body. So like on this, what do I have? I still have a 4, believe it or not. And it's pretty much the same on the 6. If you run your finger along that edge where the glass and the body come together, you can feel that kind of notch. And based on the images that Apple was showing us for the Series 7, you won't be able to feel that notch anymore. That ultimately should mean that we have fewer cracked screens, because we have gotten rid of one of the weak points excuse me, where we end up with cracks in the glass from smacking watches into walls or taking falls. Apple also did something interesting, which I was not expecting. The previous Apple Watch models, they have waterproof ratings. The Apple Watch Series 7 has dust-proof rating as well. For someone like me, that's awesome, because I spend a lot of time in the mountains, and I'd like to take my Apple Watch with me for day hikes, because I went to see how far I've actually hiked and get some credit for those steps. When I come off a mountain, regardless of how clean, I suppose, I'm trying to stay, my watch is always dirty. And I mean, there's dust all over it. There's dust on the microphone and speaker ports. And so I end up running my watch underwater to rinse all of that off. And I've always worried that dust is getting stuck inside and is going to cause me problems. Well, if I get an Apple Watch Series 7, that shouldn't be an issue anymore, because it does have that dust and dirt proof rating as well. So now you can take it underwater, or apparently underground as well. We did not get any new sensors, which again, doesn't fit with what the rumors were expecting. So if you have an Apple Watch Series 6, it's hard for me to justify for you getting a Series 7. I mean, if you want it, great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with replacing a Series 6 with a Series 7. You get the products that you want, and you're the boss of you, and go you. But if you are asking me at some point if there are enough differences between the 6 and the 7 to just look at numbers and say, yeah, it's worth it to upgrade now, I'd be hard pressed to say that. Now, it does have a bigger display, and the button sizes for interface elements are larger because of that bigger display. And it does look really nice, because the bezel is so much narrower now, and the images that we're seeing of this new watch face, or watch screen size, it's really nice. So that's a very tempting feature right there. If you have, say, an Apple Watch Series 3, and you've been holding off waiting for Apple to come out with the thing that's really going to wow you, this is probably the year to replace your Apple Watch Series 3. You get all the sensors that have been building up from the 4, the 5, and 6, and you get a much bigger screen, and all the watch bands you already have will continue to work. And you have a watch that's going to be much more waterproof than what you already have. Plus, it adds in the dust proof. Excuse me. And the price hasn't gone up compared to the Series 6. Excuse me. So yeah, Apple Watch Series 3 to Series 7 to me is a no-brainer. Series 6, a little harder to justify. And I'm on a Series 4, and I'm thinking, wow, this would be really kind of nice to have. but I also really want to get that new iPad mini. So should I throw money at both of these or just one? If I had a Series 3 watch, though, I wouldn't even be thinking about it. It would just be shut up and take my money. But the
What
problem,
if you don't have a watch at all yet?
if you don't have a watch at all, get a 7. Okay, so if you don't have a watch, doing the thing where you buy previous year models to save a couple dollars, to me doesn't make sense, because you're saving a couple dollars now, but you're buying into earlier obsolescence.
Today we're going to be talking about something pretty cool, something I haven't talked much about before.
Somebody needs to be on mute.
mute.
It might be Mark. I'm not sure who.
Yep, just realized that. Sorry.
Yeah, so anyhow, yeah, I'm not into buying into old technology, unless there's a very specific reason for doing it. So I'd say if you don't have an Apple Watch, you're ready to buy one, then buy an Apple Watch Series 7. Now, the thing is, you actually have a little bit of time before you have to make that commitment, if you're going to make that commitment, because Apple announced the watch today and said coming later this fall. So we didn't even get a solid pre-order or release date. And I believe the reason we didn't get that is because Apple is having to deal with exactly what everyone else is dealing with in the tech industry, which is a difficult time getting parts. And it's even when you're as big a company as Apple is, you can't overcome the pandemic. And because there are limited production lines because of the pandemic, Apple has to try and fight for parts just like everyone else. They just happen to be the big guy, so it's a lot easier for them to fight and win. But even still, we aren't getting that announcement date because Apple, I don't think, knows when they're going. Well, I think they have an idea of when they will have enough inventory built up to start doing sales, and that's not yet. But they don't want to make a commitment to the date and then have to push it out, because that looks a lot worse than telling us it's coming this fall, and then when they know they can actually commit to pulling that trigger and give us a date, that's going to be a much better PR move for them. So that's what they're doing.
I bet it's before the holidays.
Oh, I'm sure that that the new Apple Watch will be on sale before Black Friday.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm confused about the difference between the 3 iPad models, the basic iPad that they announced today, the iPad Air, and the iPad Pro. I know the Pro is the highest and most expensive model with the most features, but where does the iPad Air fit into it?
That's a great question. And what I'm going to do to make sure I don't miss anything is bring up the iPad Air page on Apple's website, so
Okay.
that I have all the right specs as I'm
I was
looking.
wondering if it was maybe situated in between the regular iPad and the Pro. And the reason I say that is I was surprised to hear that this new iPad today, I knew it wasn't going to have the latest chip, but the A13 is actually 2 generations back from the 15, which is now the current one in the iPhone. And I was wondering if you had to go to the Pro in order to get the absolute latest chip, or if maybe the iPad Air would be somewhere in the middle.
Well, the iPad Air, there we go. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so the iPad Air is an A14 Bionic chip.
Okay, so it is in the middle.
Yeah, so it's in the middle. So basically what we have now, if you want to look at it from just general horsepower, and keep in mind when I say general, I am generalizing here. So you have the iPad, that is the base model, And then you have the iPad Air, which fits in just a little bit above that. And then you go to the iPad Mini and the iPad Pro, which to me is fascinating that the highest powered iPads will be the biggest sizes and the smallest size. All right, does that help?
Thank you. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Fitness Plus, because Apple spent a lot of time talking about that today, even though it's not hardware. And what Apple's doing, I think, is working to expand out their health and fitness services. Well, to the point where these other companies that offer their own apps and services for fitness are going to really have to start competing directly with Apple. And on one hand, that's bad because it's hard for them. But on the other hand, hey, competition is good. So my guess is that we'll see everyone really stepping it up and giving us much better overall fitness and exercise routine tools for our iPhones and iPads and Apple TVs and Apple Watches. So Apple is expanding their Fitness Plus program out to several more countries. They're adding in some new exercise routines, and they're doing captioning on the workout routines now. So that should make it even easier for a wider range of people to use them. And of course, they tie in directly to using your Apple Watch for your fitness tracking. I heard some complaints from people today that Apple was spending way too much time talking about their Fitness Plus offerings. And while they probably could have condensed it down a little bit, I disagree with the people that say they shouldn't have spent the time talking about Fitness Plus. Apple has given us this watch that, well, when they released it, they weren't even sure what it was going to be. They needed to get it out in the market and figure out how we were going to use it, and then latch onto whatever that is and run with it. And it turns out that it's fitness. And so Apple, as they're expanding out their Fitness Plus offerings, they need to make sure that the world knows that they're very serious about health and fitness and using the Apple Watch as part of our personal fitness routine. So taking the time to show us what they're doing and give us all these offerings was really important today. Excuse me, because there's so many people in the media that were watching this event, and they needed to see that message. So, well, people that were tuning in because they just want to see the new iPhone were probably getting kind of bored with that. That was actually really necessary element, because the audiences that Apple's going for with events like this, they cover a bunch of different demographics, and so they need to make sure they get all the right things out to the people that they intend to deliver a message to. And so there you go. They needed to do that, and I'm glad they spent the time on it, even though they could have tightened that up just a little bit more. Okay, so we're zipping through stuff. We have talked about Apple Watch now, and then that takes us to the iPhone lineup. So Apple gave us first in their iPhone discussion the iPhone 13, and much like the iPhone 12, it's a dual camera phone. But instead of having the cameras in line with each other, they're diagonal now. And my guess is that they did that for two reasons. And the first was because of the camera improvements that they're doing. That probably worked out pretty well. But I think the second is, so when you hold up a camera to take a picture, you know it's not an iPhone 12. It's now an iPhone 13. And little visual cues like that are really important, especially for people that use their smartphone as kind of a status symbol. So there are a lot of people that will make sure that they're waving their iPhone 13 around where the cameras can be seen, so everyone knows there's a diagonal and not in a line. All right, so the iPhone 13, A15 Bionic processor, and there's a new camera mode that goes along with these cameras, and it's called cinematic mode. Excuse me. So, in basic terms, what they've done is they've built some AI into the phone so that if you're shooting video, you can essentially tag who it is that is the key person in a video, and it will follow them and make sure that that's the person who's always in focus. And you can actually go and change after the fact some of the focus and tracking that cinematic mode does, which is pretty cool, because what this does is it takes a video feature that anyone can use, just pull out your phone and start shooting video, and it helps people to produce better quality videos. Now, keep in mind, if you're really bad with the camera, it doesn't matter how good the camera is. You're just really bad with the camera. So if you're someone that cuts everyone off because you always have your finger right up there covering half the lens, well, it can't help you with that. But if you're someone that you can get what you want to shoot, like in frame, and you may not just be the best at figuring out, how do I focus on just that part, and how do I follow that part best? This kind of feature will help you with those things. So it can take someone that's just kind of okay with snapping photos and videos and help them to be much better just simply by letting your phone help out. And I think that's pretty cool, because that makes photography and videography much more accessible to a wider range of people. And while some people will think, well, geez, do we really need all those photos and videos? Well, yeah, we do, because they're important to us. And if we didn't care about having the memories, why would we care so much about having good cameras on our phones? And we wouldn't even have cameras on the phones at all. But this is something we have with us all the time, and it gives us a great way to capture those memories. And now you have a higher likelihood of catching a memory that when you go to look at it 6 months or 2 years from now, the photo or the video is still good to look at, because the quality will be there. So I think that's great. And the night mode shooting that we've seen with the iPhone 12, that's still there in the iPhone 13, and it's, holy crap, it's great. For those of you that don't already have an iPhone 12, it's hard to believe how good night photography is until you actually take a photo yourself, or you're with someone that has an iPhone 12 and they show you a photo that they took with night mode. I mean, it's just amazing. So seeing that stay and now work across all the cameras, I think is great. We do not get rid of the Lightning port on the iPhone. And when Apple announced the USB-C port on the iPad mini, I started to really think this was going to be the year that we got USB-C on the iPhone, but no such luck. So yeah, Apple's not ready to go there. We're getting several color changes. So we have a white iPhone that's not really white, but it's kind of white. We have a black iPhone that's not really black. It's more like a cool temperature, dark, sort of blackish color, which I mean, I think it's really interesting based on the photos that we've seen. Then we have product red. I'm totally doing this from memory. It'd be much better if I just went to the Apple website and took a look at what
There's a pink one.
now. Yep, there's the pink.
Is the red a premium?
Yes,
No.
I think so. It's
No.
not. No.
Nope.
Interesting.
Red is available on iPhone 13.
Red is the same price as the other ones, except
Right.
they make a portion of that go to HIV research.
So so it's that kind of there's kind of a rose-ish color, but not really rose gold. There's the blue. There's the black that's not exactly black. There's the white that's kind of pearly, not exactly white, and then the red.
They called it Starlight.
Yeah.
Yes, they called it Starlight and I think Twilight.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that was it. And then there's Graphite for the black.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Jeff,
Yes.
a warning about a red phone, because I got one a couple of phones back because of the donations. The problem is when you flip the little button to say the ringer's on and the ringer's off, when your phone's red and the little color is red, you really can't tell.
Oh, I
Drove me
never thought
nuts.
of that.
Drove me nuts. So as much as I appreciate the work that the donations that they make, for me, being old and stuff, I just couldn't handle it. So
That's real interesting. Thanks, Nancy. I never would have thought of that. And evidently, they didn't think of it either.
That's the kind of detail that you think Apple would pay attention to.
It also has a bigger battery.
Yes, battery life across the entire iPhone line is improved. So bigger batteries across the board. And yeah, but still lightning on this one. All right, so hold on. Let me hop over to the other tech specs because there were some other specs that I want to make sure we hit. Oh, yes. Okay, so the lowest capacity you can get now is 128 gigabytes, and then it jumps up to 256 and then 512. Finally, selling us a 64 gigabit iPhone or gigabyte iPhone at this point to me felt criminal, because the photos that we're taking, the size of the video files that we're capturing, 64 gigabyte was just not enough anymore. And then throw in some apps that you use all the time and you're just out of space. So 128 gig to me is the bare minimum that you should have on an iPhone. And letting us take, excuse me, the standard iPhone all the way up to 512 gig, I think is great. And now they're doing dual eSIM support. So, well, you can have your physical SIM card. You can now have dual eSIMs as well. And what that means is that instead of having to get a physical card to plug into your phone, there are these chips that are built in that will act as a SIM card. And so that when you sign up for a service, that it just latches onto the eSIM card and uses that. One place we've already seen this in action, you might have heard that T-Mobile started doing a test program for iPhone owners where they could try out T-Mobile 5G without being a T-Mobile customer. And you got 30 days for free. And you just have to go and download this app and from T-Mobile and fill out the info. And then it activates the eSIM in your phone. And now you have a second phone number attached to your iPhone. And you can use T-Mobile 5G and test it out for a month without having to get another SIM card or commit to a year service plan and decide if it's going to work for you. Brilliant marketing move. It's also great if you say are traveling internationally and you go someplace where you need a local SIM card and they can do eSIM for you. Then you don't even have to pop out your regular SIM card and pop a new one in. You just have your eSIM activated for that service. So now you could have potentially your regular carrier as an eSIM, and then your second carrier, whoever it is that you're using for whatever reason, as an eSIM as well, and not have to deal with the physical SIM cards. Okay, so let's talk about the iPhone 13 Pro line. And just like the Pro line on the 12, these have 3 cameras. But one big difference with the cameras this year, in the iPhone 12 Pro, to get the top of the line cameras, you had to get the 12 Pro Max, so the bigger screen model. And if you didn't want the bigger screen, like me, you lost out because you couldn't get the same cameras that you got on the Max. They didn't do that this year. So the iPhone 13, the iPhone Pro 13 and iPhone Pro Max 13 are essentially the same phones with different screen sizes. So it's the same cameras, although the features are the same. You're just swapping out the screen size. Finally, this is exactly how Apple should have done this all along. And giving us cameras along with the bigger screen is the differentiating factor between Pro and Pro Max. I thought was actually an inappropriate way to divvy up features. So they have fixed my biggest complaint with the Pro and Pro Max line by making them or giving them feature parity, just different screen sizes. Okay, so colors for the Pro series. We have a dark grayish color, which they're calling graphite. There's a light gold color. There's silver, and then there's blue. And it's a different color blue than we have in the iPhone 12 line. Just another way to differentiate the years. Okay, so like the iPhone 13, base model is 128 gigs of RAM. And then it jumps up to 256 and 512. And there's a 1 terabyte model as well. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. And a lot of people have been saying, why do I need a terabyte of storage on my phone? And if you're asking, you don't need a terabyte of storage on your phone. But if you're excited about it, you need a terabyte of storage on your phone. You're probably doing video work. And if you're shooting 4K, man, you're going to need that terabyte of storage really bad. Basically, what Apple has done with their Pro Series cameras with the Pro Series phone cameras, there we go. They have created iPhones that, if you wanted to, you could shoot feature films with these. And I find that to be absolutely insane. And yet here we are. But to be fair, there are people shooting movies with the iPhone 10. So this is just a natural progression of that. So really what Apple is doing is creating for a professional videographer a really nice, relatively inexpensive video camera that also will let them make calls and play video games if they want. And actually, that's part of the reason why I'm surprised we didn't get USB-C this year, because that would have made offloading these 4K video files much faster. But we didn't get that. So I would say maybe next year, but honestly, at this point, I don't think Apple's going to put USB-C on the iPhone. I think that they will come up with some other connector that that lets them essentially seal off the hole where the Lightning connector is today. And we will have a different way of attaching peripherals. And maybe it will be like that smart connector that we're seeing on iPads, where you have a series of little circles on the surface of the device, and everything just kind of sticks to that. It wouldn't be exactly like that, because there's a lot that goes along with the Lightning port. So we have to have throughput, and we have to have power, and you need to make sure that you can handle the bandwidth that you need. So it would be something else, but I think that's the direction Apple's going. And I see in the notes, or in the comments, Craig is saying, I thought the EU was basically forcing Apple to eventually adopt USB-C. Well, no, but yes. And forcing cell phone makers to adopt a standardized port is not the same thing as forcing phone makers to put the exact same port in physically into the body of the phone. So what Apple could do is develop the phone the way they want, and then include in the package the little plug thing that connects to their smart connector that gives the standardized port. And Apple, if they were to standardize on what the EU wants, then what happens when they go to the next country that wants all phone carriers to standardize on mini USB? Does Apple make different phones for each country? And I don't see that happening. They will make their worldwide phone, and then they will come up with whatever accommodation they need to meet the legal requirements of whatever country that they're selling that device in. Apple's a very clever company. They will find ways to work around this. Okay, so we need to talk a little bit about the screens on these. And specifically, I want to talk about ProMotion, because this is a place that's going to bite a few people when they buy iPhones, because they won't realize the implications of the specs and what, wow, let me say this sentence a completely different way. The specs that you choose for the iPhone Pro that you buy will have a direct impact on the image quality on screen. So we have the Super Retina XDR display with ProMotion, and you know, that's the big thing that Apple was pushing with the new iPhones. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that you have a display that has a refresh rate up to 120 hertz, and it's adaptive. So that that refresh rate will drop lower when you're doing something that doesn't need as high a refresh rate. Now, you as the user, you're not going to notice that visually, but you will notice that when you don't have to charge your iPhone as often, because the higher the refresh rate, the more power you're using, because it means your screen is having to redraw much more often. Okay, so when you have the refresh rate that's adaptive, then you can have that throttle back down. Okay, and then you save battery power that way. Okay, so with that discussion, or that description right there, now let's talk about why it matters that you pay attention to the specs that you get. So if you get an iPhone that has 128 gigs of RAM in it, you do not get refresh rates up to 120 hertz. You have to have at least a 256 gig model. And there we go. Wow. Much like Austin, we have dry air in Boulder. And sadly, I'm sitting here drinking water, unlike when I came in and hung out with you in person, and I drank what we dubbed Austin water. I enjoy the beer in Austin. Yeah.
And we provided your dinner.
Yes. You know, okay, I'm going down a rabbit hole for a second. I had so much fun when I came down to Austin and got to hang out with all of you in person. You are just such an awesome group of people, and it was just so great to show up and to be welcomed in like I'm an old friend that you hadn't seen in years. And it was just a wonderful experience. And Austin's a great town. So it was absolutely wonderful.
The invitation is open.
Well, thank you. And I'm looking forward to when the world is a little bit less crazy and I can come hang out with all of you again. Also, I'm kind of missing having some good Austin barbecue and Austin Tex-Mex. Well, basically everything Austin. I'm just missing Austin. Okay. So anyhow, the displays. My recommendation is, even though you can get a 128 gig iPhone, you should really get at least a 256 gig iPhone so that you get to take advantage of all the features that the new phones offer. Now, you might be thinking, I really don't think I would be able to tell the difference in the images. But that's not the point. The point is, at some point you probably will be able to. But having better quality, say when you're watching a video on your phone, or let's say you decide to capture some 4K video of family and friends at a picnic, and you want to look at it right away on your phone. You want to see what you really captured, and having that adaptive refresh rate is important to make that happen. So you know, it comes down to partly to what I used to tell my clients back when I was an Apple consultant, which is, buy as much as you possibly can afford when you need to get it. So in this case, if you're buying a new iPhone and you can afford to get more than 128 gig model, then do it. And you'll be much happier because you'll have a device that's much more capable for you in the long run, and will give you features that today you may think, I don't really need that. But man, the number of times that I have seen people, family and friends, and back in the day clients, that would say, I don't really need that part, so I'm just going to get the lower price model. And then within 6 months, they're lamenting the fact that they didn't get what they should have gotten in the first place. And actually, I have family members that to this day will call me up and say, Jeff, can you do whatever for me? Because they didn't buy the Mac or the iPhone that had the features they needed. And now they're realizing it's a problem for them. So anyhow, don't be like my family members. Be smart. Okay. So we have run through a ton of features like really fast tonight. And I want to make sure that we have time for more questions if anyone has any. So hit me up with questions.
I was just wondering, you said you really wanted to get your hands on one of the new iPad minis.
Yes.
I mean, I've got an iPad. How would I justify buying a mini if I already have an iPad? Or how do you justify it? Maybe think about your thought process. I'm sure you've got an iPad already, but yet you want the mini.
Okay. I'm fully willing to admit I'm a special case. And not everyone needs to get the stuff. But when you say, do you assume I already have an iPad? Yes, I have a 12.9-inch iPad Pro. I have a 10-inch iPad Pro, and I have a Series 2 and Series 4 iPad Mini. And the way I end up using these devices, they all actually have specific purposes. For example, my 12.9-inch iPad Pro is my laptop on the go when I don't need to take my MacBook Pro with me. And then the iPad Mini, so the 12.9-inch iPad Pro is a content creation device for me. The iPad Mini is a content consumption device, but also a communication device, because I can take care of email real quick on it. I can do iMessage or whatever messaging app I need to use, and it's compact and it's easy to throw in a bag, and I can take it with me basically anywhere if I need to, and it's especially nice when I'm traveling. And then the other iPads are there, and they serve a lot of purposes, but they also become sacrificial test devices because of all the stuff that I've been involved in for so many years. Now, how do I justify, or how would I justify an iPad Mini when I have an iPad already if I wasn't doing the things that I'm doing? And for me, it would be more about how am I using these devices, and are the differences going to be distinct enough? So if I wanted an iPad so that I could read books, watch some video, and answer a few emails and do some messaging, maybe some FaceTime, and I didn't want to have extra weight, the new iPad Mini is straight up a no-brainer. If I have an iPad that's meeting all of those needs already, and I don't feel like there are situations where the smaller size would be better suited for what I'm doing, then maybe just stick with one. Another place where I actually end up using two iPads a lot is simultaneous use, where I will be doing my content creation on the iPad Pro, but I'll have the iPad Mini sitting here with me, taking up less space, and I'm doing other research on that. And because of handoff, I can just throw stuff from the Mini to the Pro, and now I have a multi-screen setup where, and I'm doing it just with iPads.
It's a good point. I notice our old iPads tend to be left in different places around the house. So you always have one you can pick up when you're trying to think of something or do something. One sits on the TV with all the on the coffee table by the TV with all the remotes, which, you're always going, well, what else was that actor in, and so you can just grab it and do it. But yeah, I don't think I make as effective use of an iPad as I could. I don't think I've ever really used a handoff. So these are things I should probably learn how to do. And then I'd go, God, I need a bunch of them.
Yes.
I love handoff.
Yeah, handoff and AirDrop are great. These are features that I use to get content back and forth between iPads and my Mac every single day. And actually it's making me very excited for when iOS 15 and iPad OS 15 and Mac OS Monterey are all out, because that's when we'll have the universal control feature. And then I can have my iPad and my Mac sitting right here in front of me, and my keyboard and mouse and trackpad, whatever, and I'm just jumping between the screens and devices with the same keyboard and mouse. And it's just going to be wonderful, because I'll be able to work on multiple devices simultaneously and have each one doing the thing it does best. So what I'm envisioning happening is I record videos. I have a YouTube channel. And so I record using this camera, which feeds into my Mac. But then when I do all of my video editing, I do it on my iPad Pro in Luma Fusion. And so if I can have my camera rig set up right here, and then my iPad right here, and I can be working on capturing video, but then editing, and I don't even have to move to make that happen, that would be wonderful. Because what I do now is I shoot here, then move everything over to my iPad, and then I go into the living room and sit at the table there with the iPad, so I have enough space to actually work and do video editing there. So anyhow, that's an example of how all of this comes together for me. And stuff like that makes multiple iPads actually really useful for me.
I still carry my MacBook Pro everywhere. I guess I kind of like what a computer can do for you as far as content creation. I still find the tablets and the phones to be awkward for things I'm used to doing, and maybe it's just I'm not used to it.
Well, it depends on what apps you're using as well. There are certain things where I still won't try and do them on my iPad, and I just go right to my Mac. But I'm finding as the operating systems mature and as apps progress and develop new features, and we get better processors, that I'm doing more and more on my iPad Pro as opposed to on my Mac. Not a Mac replacement yet, but I think the day will come when, excuse me, I'll get rid of my MacBook Pro, and I'll have like an M1 Mac Mini on my desk, and so it'll never leave the desk. And anytime I leave the desk, it will be with an iPad Pro.
Jeff, how much is the new Mini that you were talking about?
Oh, the new Mini. Holy crap. It's amazing, actually. I'm really surprised. The starting price is $429, I believe. Hold on, no, it's $499. Starts at $499. So that's Wi-Fi, no 5G. Oh, and that's another thing. It has 5G for cellular.
I have a question. I still have an iPhone 7 and I want to get a new iPhone. And I'm wondering about the iPhone 13, the bigger one, the size. Will it fit in a hip pocket, like in your jeans pocket or something?
Okay, so just to give you size idea, this is the iPhone 12 Pro, okay?
Oh, Pro, okay.
And what do I have on my desk that's good for size comparison? Oh, how about an iPod Touch? Okay, so I can put an iPad Pro in my jeans pocket.
Okay.
But we have this weird thing where society thinks that women don't need like normal size pockets. So you may or may not be able to fit the 12 Pro in your pocket. For me, the 12 Pro Max is just too big.
But if you just get If you get the one that's not the Pro, just the iPhone 13, but that's not the Pro, isn't that a little bit smaller?
The Pro and the regular are the same. It's the Max that's the larger.
Yeah, hold on. The iPhone 13
Of course, I could look it up.
is now I'm pretty sure the size is the same as well. There's the 13, which is basically the same size as the iPhone 12 or iPhone 13 Pro. And then there's the iPhone 13 mini.
Right.
And then there's a Max. Isn't there a Max?
Yes. But that's in the Pro line, not in the standard line.
You might want to wear your jeans with the smallest pocket to the Apple store.
Or get the dimensions and cut pieces of cardboard out and see where they fit. I mean, because I really like the smaller form factor for tucking into pockets and pouches and purses and things. But I'm sure it's a personal thing.
The Pro is 6.1 inches, and that's a little bit smaller than my Max. I have a 10X Max, and that's like 6.4 inches, I think. 6.1 to me for the iPhone Pro is right. It's just about right. And you get all those Pro features like the camera and everything.
But what's the width?
I don't remember, but it's just narrow. It's long and narrow. And so I've never had a problem. Of course, I'm a guy, but I've never had a problem with shorts or jeans or slacks or anything. It fits into this. It fits into everything.
Sorry.
All right. So dimensions on the iPhone 13 is just a touch over 2.5 inches wide. So this way, and almost 5.25 inches this way, and then a little over 1/4 inch thick. It's 0.3 inches thick.
It should fit into most pockets.
It should fit
That's
into
the
most
regular
men's
13.
pockets.
And the 13 mini, right?
Now the 13 mini, that comes in at there it is, 2.82 inches wide, 5.78 inches long.
This is a 12 mini.
And 0.3 inches. Wait, is that right? Huh.
I think you have it backwards. The 13 is 5 3/4 inches. The mini is 5.18 inches.
Yep, you're right. I scrolled down too far.
Nathan,
And,
holding it towards the camera is just like when you catch a fish and you hold it towards the camera, it looks way bigger.
Well, for reference,
There,
LC
that
first
helps.
generation is 2.5 by 5.5.
11 Pro.
Yeah. So sorry about that. I had the dimensions backwards because I'd scrolled down too far. And so 2.82 inches wide for the 13, 5.78 inches long. The mini is 2.53 inches wide and 5.18 inches long.
That's not any bigger than my first generation SE. That's a good size.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
what's amazing-
love the size of the mini. It's a one-handed phone, and to me, a mobile phone really needs to be usable one-handed, and all the phones above the mini size, they really aren't one-handed devices unless you have giant hands. And now for a lot of people, they don't care.
I have the 10RS, and I have a stand for it that I got from that place that makes your cars, those car things that they put in your cars to keep your floors clean, WeatherTech. And I got a really nice stand for it, and I like it because it's a bigger screen for me. And I use it more than I do my iPad, but I like my iPad because it has a bigger screen.
That's a really common use case for getting the bigger iPhone, because people like having something that they can use as a phone and as a tablet.
Also, if you put a case on it, it's going to be wider too. Because I have a good case on my iPhone 7, but it's like has about a 1/4 inch on each side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you have an iPhone 7, the 13 Pro is just, it's not very much bigger. The height, it's about 3/10 of an inch higher and about 2/10 of an inch wider. So it's pretty comparable. The 13 Pro is actually smaller than the iPhone 11 that I have.
That's
And I agree with Jeff that the smaller form factor for doing it one-handed is much easier. When I first got this, I hated it that it was too much wider than the previous version.
You said smaller than the 7? I thought the 7 was a lot smaller than these other ones. Because
Well, no,
I had a 7 and it
13
was
is just a little bit bigger. It's not
than
much.
the 7?
It's comparable in size. Yes.
Really?
Right.
Because the 7 was pretty
The
small.
iPhone Mini, the 13 Mini is more the size.
Yeah, the 13 mini is smaller than the 7.
Smaller? Oh, okay.
The 13
Smaller
mini
than
is
the
smaller
7,
than the
huh?
7, and the 13 Pro is just a smidge bigger than the 7.
Now, the
Oh,
way
that's
Apple
cool.
was able to have these body sizes that haven't ballooned into giant things, relatively speaking, was by getting rid of the Touch ID button.
Get rid of the
And then
belly button.
they can make the screens taller, and then as technology has advanced, they can push them out closer to the edges of the body, so you can get a bigger display in the same size frame, essentially, which is what we're seeing with Apple Watch. The body itself really isn't changing size that much, but they're able to push that screen out closer to the edges and give you more screen in basically the same space.
Not that you need it.
And this, I think this is somewhat relevant. I had an iPhone 11 that I carried for quite some time, and I ended up getting trigger finger on my left hand from clutching it too much. And the doctor said that's what was causing it. And it's very weird. So, if you've got small hands, it's something to think about.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to, Nancy, even with my bigger phone, because I had long fingers.
I don't. I have extremely short fingers.
Yeah, that's why I decided to get the bigger phone, or get the stand for the phone, and that way, when I carry it around, I have a pocket for it in my little fanny pack, and or I could even take my stand with me if I want to, but when I'm at home, I just put it on the stand and keep it on the stand.
Now, one thing Apple didn't mention during the keynote, which I need to make sure we all know, is when is iOS 15 coming out? And I can't remember if I mentioned this at the beginning or not. So just in case I didn't, iOS 15 and iPadOS 15 are coming out on Monday the 20th. So next Monday. And we don't have a date yet for macOS Monterey. My guess is that it will be like mid-October when we get that. And when iOS 15 comes out, of course, we'll get the new watchOS version as well.
I just want to say, anybody that didn't watch the event today, it's well worth watching. It's just a little over an hour, but there's lots of really good music and some great video, and it was all shot using the new phones, and their transitions from one person speaking to the next are all pretty cool. I mean, they're professionals at what they do.
They are.
Where do you find that replay?
I found it on our Apple TV channel on our Roku. Imagine they can watch it from the website or from.
Yeah, you can get it at apple.com.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's still, it's there.
if you go to the Apple website, you'll find it there. If
Mhm.
you have an Apple TV or any device that has the Apple TV or the TV app on it, it just shows up as
Oh, yeah.
as
I
something
didn't
right
think
in
about
there,
that.
and you
Yeah,
can
I
go to
watched
YouTube
it
as
on
well.
The thing that stood out the most to me was the camera features. I mean, they took a
Oh,
big leap
really?
in the cameras on the phone.
I have to admit, I was kind of bored with that. I felt like it was in the worst Star Trek movie ever. You know, where they did the techno babble, you know, and just made up a bunch of terms and threw them around. I have to admit, I was really bored with that.
But yeah, admit
The
so.
camera,
Some
camera, 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 camera.
of the
Okay.
videos were cool.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Yeah, I can
But I don't want to
appreciate
see no
being bored with
dog
that
in
part.
a handcuff either.
That
And
was fun.
one of the things that Apple does with these presentations is they will target specific groups with a specific piece of information. So while they try and keep the entire event entertaining or at least engaging, there will be points throughout where different groups of people will be like, I don't know why they're doing this because I really don't care. And so the part
happened to me.
where they were going through all these camera specs, for a lot of people, they don't care. But there's a very important segment where that was the only reason that they tuned in. And so that information really needed to be there for them, because we're talking about the people that are using these cameras in a professional or semi-professional space. And they needed to have that information just right up in front of them.
That's true. And they tend to spend money too.
Yeah.
I was thinking more in terms of the capabilities, not the technology, but the low light capabilities for the camera, and you know, the way that it will follow a subject and focus on the subject. And then there's a mode on there. Well, of course, the night mode sounds pretty exciting, but there's a mode on there where you can actually choose different output filters, I guess you would call it, or styles or whatever, and you can actually choose those before you take the photo if you want to. And I think they've taken a big leap with the camera. I think it just sounds really impressive, especially on the Pro models.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cameras are the place where smartphones really differentiate themselves anymore, because the operating systems are you're either into iOS or Android, and then the other features are, well, can I make phone calls with it, which cell technologies does it support, and and that's all basically, it's 4G, LTE, 5G ish thing, and then 5G. Okay, so that doesn't differentiate a phone anymore. It's really down to the cameras, and honestly, there is a large percentage of smartphone buyers that when they upgrade to a new phone, they're upgrading for the camera.
That is true. I didn't get, there were 3 things I wanted. None of them happened.
Well, there's still more time.
But, well, I was hoping for Touch ID on the power button, so that we could have a choice whether to use. I've used Face ID for 3 years, but I still hate it. And I can't use it with, where you have to gaze at it, so it's less secure for me. And I wanted there to be, I was hoping for USB-C, but that's not going to happen. I was also hoping that the less expensive models would have the LiDAR, and they don't. So,
well, not having LiDAR, we'll go through these things. Not having LiDAR in the less expensive models does not surprise me. And
no,
yeah, and that's a cost consideration on Apple's
it's
part.
they'll eventually probably be there, but they're not there yet.
Yeah, I think we're still at least a couple years off from that. Then
That's probably true.
But I mean, even if they get it to the point where it's more affordable, until there's enough to differentiate the pro line from the non-pro line with LiDAR, it's not going to happen. Then USB-C, well, yeah, I'm with you. I wish that would have happened.
Wish they would do that.
Then the Touch ID on iPhones, I will be stunned if that ever happens. Yeah, Apple never wanted to do fingerprints for identification on phones anyhow. And they did it because the technology wasn't there for them to be able to do Face ID in the beginning. So as soon as they were able to get away from that on the phones, they started making that move.
Yeah, and I know some of the Androids let you do either one. And, but that's not enough of a reason for me to want to get an Android. That's for sure.
What does LiDAR do?
Well, what it would do for me is it can help like recognize, it can actually help recognize people and stuff. And there will be, as it gets more common, there'll be more programs that help us with, things that you just do without thinking about them. But as long as there isn't that much of it out there, nobody's really going to put a lot of effort into developing stuff. Microsoft has a program out there called Seeing AI that I think that they have a version of it that uses the LiDAR to help like actually identify specific people. But I don't have LiDAR on my phone, so I can't test it out to see how well it works.
Yeah, for other uses that you get with LiDAR, and by the way, doing the facial scan thing so you can identify people, I think is a huge benefit of LiDAR.
Yeah, that's cool.
But it's basically a 3D mapping system. So it's sending out the LiDAR beams and then building a 3D model of whatever the LiDAR is hitting and then bouncing back. So you can actually, there are people that have developed apps that will do 3D modeling where you just like take your LiDAR equipped phone and move it around an object, and then it builds a 3D model for you that you can actually spin around on your phone. Another thing that LiDAR helps with is if you're doing, say, like a portrait capture of someone with a photo or camera, and you need to be able to capture the person, when you're doing HDR or actually we're seeing some of this with raw image capture on the iPhones as well, where you need to be able to get all these multiple exposures, and you need to make sure that the exposures that you're getting on the person are appropriate for someone with skin tones. And then the background with the sky has appropriate exposure for that. So the way Apple is doing that with their own Pro RAW is they're building a map of the person and then actually making a mask like you would in Photoshop of the person, so that you can have them kind of pulled out as a separate thing where you get the exposure for them, but then a completely different exposure for the background. And that's a place where LiDAR comes in handy. And moving forward, it'll be an important part of Apple's augmented reality products.
Oh yeah, I didn't say that, but that's true.
Well, and even also for video capture, for post-processing, having that raw information in there with LiDAR for shading and lighting concerns. You can actually change the lighting on an object.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, these are all things that that will restrict LiDAR to pro level Apple products until there's enough other differentiating factors.
It's true. They have to keep the lines, the two.
Yes,
separate
and
sides.
sometimes those delineations are artificially created.
I have plenty of time to decide whether I need a new phone.
Yes. All right.
I did it again. Jeff, thank you so much for all of your time and all this information. It's been grand, and we really appreciate all your time.
Well, thank you for inviting me back. It's always just so much fun to get to hang out with all of you.
Anytime.
Yes, thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah, that was,
Thanks a
it's
lot.
wonderful. It made it so much clearer than, I mean, the presentation was great, but this made it a lot clearer.
Puts things in perspective for us.
Yes, it's really great.
We were able to slow down where it was necessary, whereas Apple had to keep their crazy fast pace through the whole thing.
John, back to you.
He did good.
Well, I think we're about to the point where we can wrap this meeting up. Thank you again, Jeff. It was a very good program, as you always present to us. We appreciate your time and your efforts to assist us and come and visit. I think at this point we can wrap things up.